This is going to be an interesting video, but who am I to talk about this if I don't get a bit uncomfortable today? Because uncomfortable is something I've been avoiding for a very long time. You probably saw or heard me talking about being a perfectionist, or more like a recovering perfectionist right now. And I can gladly say, now I could say this, imperfect is good. And I'm never going to be perfect, no matter how long and hard I try, and I don't need to be. And vulnerability and being uncomfortable is a virtue and my strength, which I'm also trying to embrace here in this video. Welcome, English learner. Welcome to my channel. My name is Chubby. I'm an English fluency and language anxiety coach. Welcome to this channel, a channel for English learners who want to learn how to make vocabulary more memorable and speak fluently and comfortably with the help of building their listening skills and spoken communication skills. So this video is going to be a bit more personal. And I know the last time I recorded a personal video, I said, it's going to be the most personal video ever. Now this is going to be the most personal video ever. I'm literally shaking and still thinking of what I'm going to share with you today. And I try to make sure that I'll tell you as much as I can about my journey from from being an anxious, worried, and perfectionist little student into a more brave and courageous and vulnerable English coach who you're currently looking at. And by the end of this video, you'll be walking away with a couple of things that you might want to work on, you might want to start working on if you can find anything relatable in this video. I originally come from a small little town in Hungary, an Eastern European country, and I spent my first 14 years over here. And I was one of those all A students who always gets the best grades, always nails the best roles when there's a theatre play for kids. And I was the talk of the town. Everybody knew who Chubby Burger was, or Berger Chubby, as people call me here in Hungary. But very few people knew how much of a pressure that was on me, because once I got these different qualifications and I collected all these rewards and everything else, I kind of put a lot of pressure on myself of staying perfect and protecting this image. So I ended up in a high school, an elite high school, very close to my town, where there was a lot of pressure on people being their best, working and studying their arse off for nothing more than to bring the statistics of the school up a bit. So I was living my first 2 decades in that spirit. Let's not even talk about my English fluency. I always felt I can't speak if it's not a perfect sentence. I can't pronounce words because I had a relatively strong Hungarian accent. I couldn't think of having a conversation with other people because I was so scared of making mistakes in front of others, for them to see me being vulnerable, making mistakes, speaking like a child, speaking like a 5-year-old who is barely able to put sentences together. And I was ashamed of also the fact that I'm not making progress, and I didn't really know what it is that blocks me for such a long time. And then after a while, I mean, you know that I love English. I loved English back then too. I just didn't like speaking publicly, speaking in front of others. But then I made a decision. When I started university, I said, I'm going to look at the bright side of as many things as I can. This was a decision in my life because I was sick of all the pain, being stuck, when I clearly knew that I had all the skills I needed in order for me to improve my conversation skills. So eventually that led me to a lot of different micro decisions that I made after this big decision. I'm going to focus on the positive and wake up every day looking at the positive. And then the anxiety started to fade away. I started to sit closer to the teacher at university when there was a speaking class. I started not to feel so frustrated when I got feedback on something I didn't pronounce correctly. I used to pronounce edge instead of hedge. I thought that's a silent H, for example. It's a very small one. I used to think that it's pronounced apricot and not apricot, things like that too. So I was obviously really scared of criticism, but I also knew that I've got to look at the positive in everything. I still had really high standards for myself. So I remember very clearly, this is something you might find relatable to, that I just wanted things to be perfect. I wanted to control conversations. I wanted to use the perfect word that perfectly describes what I was trying to say. So I don't offend people. I don't make people feel sad because of what I'm saying. Can you see the repeating patterns? I wanted perfect grammar. I wanted to use the perfect words. And I also wanted to make sure that other people see me as perfect, as in somebody who doesn't offend them, doesn't make them feel bad. And that's where perfectionism is a weakness for me. Because the thing about perfectionists is that they set the bar unrealistically high. It's good to be a high achiever, and I stay a high achiever. I think a lot of perfectionists could be the best and highest achievers in life if they learn how there is a difference between setting an unrealistic goal, like speaking a second language perfectly from the moment you're learning it, and being a high achiever, meaning I'm going to show up as much as I can, being okay with all the fears, all the uncomfortable feelings, and just work on something, because effort also helps me build a skill. A lot of us perfectionists don't like to be uncomfortable. A lot of us perfectionists don't like to show that we don't do something well. And that's one of the problems of so many people feeling stuck with their English. They just feel like they should hide their weaknesses until it's getting better. But the thing about that is that it ends up in a loop, because the reason you're unable to speak naturally, you're unable to put a sentence together and make a sentence without flipping up, hesitating, looking for the best word, is because you're trying so hard on achieving this, instead of saying, I will do as much as I can, speak as well as I can, and I'm going to build my skills from all the effort that I put in developing my conversation skills. But even at uni, I was still a control freak. I was trying to control people. I was trying to make friends with people who could be relatively easy to manipulate. So they stay my friends, they do what I prefer to do, which now I look at as something disgusting, but that's what gave me that safety. And that ended up being the same for a few years, until there was a dear friend, my dear friend from South Korea, Junsang, I hope you're watching this, who told me that things don't have to be the way you want them to be. And people don't have to do things just because you would do the same. I had a lot of expectations of other people, extremely critical of the world, and I always thought I don't fit into this world because people are strange, people do different things, and why are they doing these things? I didn't realize that by being critical with others, not accepting people for who they are, I was also very critical of myself. And I still kept hearing voices in my head telling me, why can't you do that? You can see so many people speaking on YouTube, for example, so many English teachers on YouTube 10, 15 years ago. Why can't you do that? Why are your videos so sloppy? My first videos were literally horrible, and I really didn't like them. I didn't like to look into my own eyes or listen to my own voice on video. I kept hearing all these negative voices in my head, but then the more I discovered about myself, the more I saw the perfectionist in me. Now I can gladly say that I'm a recovering perfectionist. And here's a couple of things that I did that might help you work on your perfectionism too. Because we know that what really helps people become fluent English speakers is exposing themselves to real listening or real reading just a slightly above their level, which is an uncomfortable situation people often find themselves in, and interacting with other people and learning from all the conversations on how to put sentences together and have a conversation. And if these two things sound a bit uncomfortable, then here's what you could do. The first thing is make sure that you don't avoid it. I spent months and years avoiding improving my speaking skills because I wasn't exactly sure how to put together a sentence. Little did I know that that's exactly what I needed in order for me to start building my skills. And I know you might be thinking what I was thinking back then. What will other people think of me if I can't put a sentence together? I will make people have to wait because I'm struggling to finish my sentence. But at the same time, just ask any of your friends who you really trust, what they would expect from you. And I'm sure you will find that the answer is just do what you can. So the expectations that we think other people have of us are actually our own expectations. So my recommendation is make sure you relax your expectations. Take them down to something more realistic. Think of the fact that you're just learning a second language, and no matter how hard you try, it's never going to be perfect, because even if you look at native speakers of English or your own native language, you don't use it perfectly, and that's fine. You are not preparing for an exam where you get measured. You use English to communicate with other people, and eventually people won't remember the mistakes you made. Just think of a conversation you had in English with someone in the last couple of weeks or months or years. Do you remember the mistakes they made? Or maybe something else they made you feel like? So communication is always going to be more important for us. The other thing about having this fear of judgment from other people is, and this is something I'm coming to realize, is that I can choose whose opinion I'm listening to. Because if I don't know the context of that person and I don't trust that person, I don't actually care what they think about me. And this has been a struggle for me for a very long time. If you look back at my older videos, you look back at my first Instagram, you probably saw that I was struggling with like hair loss, and I was hiding it for a very long time. I was literally hiding it, no matter how ridiculous it looked like. Or I have not the most beautiful teeth when I show up on camera, and sometimes I get comments. But I'm also learning not to listen to these pieces of advice, because I don't want to give away my power over my life and my fluency. David D. Burns says perfectionism is a badge of honor with you, playing the part of the suffering hero. Because it is suffering. It's a horrible feeling to always be scared of speaking in front of other people, even if it's just 1, 2, or 3 people around us. It is excruciatingly painful when you take so much time finishing something because you focus on the details, or when you feel like you're not being productive because the thing that is ahead of you is so big and you're so scared of not being able to do it and handle it and finishing it perfectly that you just keep procrastinating on it. Do you prefer to have this kind of pain, or stepping into the discomfort, showing other people that you are a human being, as imperfectly beautiful and amazing as you are? So just a few words to you from a recovering perfectionist. Try to think about the long-term benefits of what you do. Don't try to avoid what's uncomfortable, because anytime you do something where you feel weak, where you feel like you're in discomfort, that you're scared of all the judgment around you, that's the point. You're going to build the skills you need to build to become a fluent speaker. What is more important for you? To live in the fear of not sounding natural, not making any progress, of pretending to be able to be a fluent speaker because you understand most of what people say, but you can't reply at the same level? Or you prefer to step into that fear, feel it, tolerate the discomfort of speaking in front of other people, even if you can't put sentences together the way you want to put them together, and learn from everything that you're experiencing, because that's the best feedback you can get. And whenever you feel weak when you're doing something that your voice is telling you can't do, it's always a can't yet, because the reason you feel weak is not validating your weakness. The reason you feel incapable of doing that is just a sign that you're learning, because effort is necessary for improvement. So I really hope that this video didn't only help you know me better, what kind of person I am, what kind of coach I am, but it will also inspire you to finally start taking action on a couple of these things that you have been procrastinating for a long time. Do it for your fluency, and let me know in the comments how you feel, and if there's any way I can help. You can always find me on my other social channels, and my email address is in the description as well. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Get inspired by it and take action on your fluency. You are much more powerful than you think. Take care, and hope to see you in another video.